Okay, well, welcome, Pharmacist Ben. Fantastic to see you again.
Nice to see you again. You're not getting sick
Yeah.
of seeing my face every day.
No, but you're so full of terrific information, and I'm really looking forward to helping people understand how to reclaim their cardiovascular health.
Yep.
We're seeing such a rise in heart disease, and you're here to tell us what they can do to turn that around.
Look, there's so many things. First of all,
Yep.
I'm going to try and break it down as simply as I can. But of course, it's going to come down to the triangle of disease. Please, I'm not talking to you, Michelle. I'm talking to everybody out there. Please don't overthink this. It's so simple. Our health is so simple compared to what we're being told and what the medical model wants us to believe and what the drug companies want us to believe, how complex it seems. It's just so simple. Digestion, blood sugar, stress management, and then the whole adrenal thyroid link, stress being related to the thyroid. So I know the biggest, probably it's not the biggest, one of the biggest topics when it comes to understanding cardiovascular health involves cholesterol and statin drugs. And at the risk of beating a dead horse, because I talk about this all the time, I think it's really important because it's probably, if it's not the best-selling drugs, if they're not the best-selling drugs in the world, they're among the best-selling drugs in the world. And that's, of course, the cholesterol-lowering drugs, so-called statins. I'm old enough to remember when statins came out. I don't know if you remember. Before statins came out, the cholesterol hypothesis, as they call it, which is the idea that it's cholesterol that causes heart disease, it was still talked about a little bit. It wasn't as well known or as endemic and as significant a part of the medical culture as it is today. They used to give resins for people who had elevated cholesterol. You'd swallow this drug that was a resin, and the cholesterol would stick to the drug or stick to the resin. And then the statins came out in the mid 80s. And of course, that's when the whole thing blew up. Statins being incredibly inexpensive to manufacture. And at the same time, real nice profit margins. It became a cash cow, basically. And cardiologists and medical professionals got on board with the whole cholesterol hypothesis. And to the point today where I don't even know how many people are on statins. I should probably look it up, how many people are on statin drugs. But it's a lot. And I don't know around the world, but in the United States, there are probably, I would guess, maybe close to 20, 30 million people on statin drugs, maybe more. I don't really know what the numbers are, but it's a lot of people on statin drugs. And because they're so relatively benign compared to other drugs, physicians feel comfortable putting people on these kinds of drugs. There's 45 million people on statin drugs in the United States. That's what, one out of every 8 or 9 people are on a statin drug. Come on. This is ridiculous. They want to put them in the water. They want to put them over the counter, all because of this idea that we accept, almost like a fish accepts bait. You know, fish swim in the water with their mouth open, bait comes, and then they just eat the bait. They don't question anything. They just bite on the bait. And that's how we accept the medical medical dogma that there's this thing called cholesterol that you got to lower. What's worse, our misunderstanding of cholesterol marginalizes the importance of cholesterol. Cholesterol has become this demon. It's not. It's probably the single most functional molecule or multifunctional molecule in the body. There's so many reasons why cholesterol is important. I'll tell you about that in a second. But before we get into that, I want to just really disabuse everybody this notion that there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Okay, I know I'm going against the grain here because everybody knows good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Your good cholesterol is important for protecting your heart. Your bad cholesterol causes heart disease. Well, not so fast. Or as they say, hold my beer. You ever hear that? Hold my beer. Check this out here. I'm going to try and screen share with you here. This is just one article. Let me pull this up here. I'm still learning. I'm still learning how this whole thing works here. Okay. Yeah. Lack of an association or an inverse association between low-density lipoprotein cholesterol mortality in the elderly. In other words, low-density lipoprotein in this study, and this is a systematic review on a bunch of other studies where they take a bunch of studies, put them all together, and see what the net results were. Well, guess what? This is from the British Journal of Medicine, which is one of the premier peer-reviewed scientific and medical health journals. Lack of an association lack of an association or an inverse association between low density lipoprotein cholesterol and mortality. That means they're not connected. Not only that, but there's an inverse association so that the lower your low density lipoprotein, the higher your mortality. Okay? And if you understand what cholesterol does, this makes perfect sense. Here's another one. And there's this, I just pulled two of them off the web here. Let me see if I can pull this one up. Bad cholesterol may have a bad rap. New research challenges the hypothesis. Research published this week in the British Medical Journal, another article in the BMJ, suggests otherwise, and according to research, provides rationale to reevaluate heart health guidelines. Please, people, you got to question things. You got to understand how this whole thing works before you just swallow medication and swallow information without assessing it critically. So here's the deal. HDL stands for high density, just think of heavy, lipoprotein. A lipoprotein is a bubble. Lipo means fat. Protein means protein. Proteins tend to be water soluble. So a lipoprotein is a combination of fat and water together. It's basically one of the ways that molecules pass through the bloodstream. Fatty molecules pass through the bloodstream. You ever see, you've seen The Wizard of Oz, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Remember how Glinda the Good Witch traveled in a bubble?
Yes.
That's how the body transports things that would clog up fluids. It sticks them in a bubble. Cholesterol is sticky stuff. It's a wax, essentially. If you look at cholesterol, it will look very waxy and fatty, and it can't really float through the bloodstream, so the body encircles it or traps it in a bubble, like Glinda the Good Witch. It's in a bubble. It's lipoprotein. There's a few different kinds of lipoproteins, but there's two main ones. One is said to be heavy and the other is said to be light. Heavy is HDL, high density. It's dense. And LDL is low density. It's a light bubble. So what is this thing with good cholesterol and bad cholesterol? Well, it turns out HDL cholesterol travels away from the blood into the liver, or travels through the blood into the liver for storage and deconstruction. The LDL travels out of the liver into the blood. And so the thinking was that because this LDL cholesterol, and remember, LDL is not cholesterol. LDL cholesterol is a bubble that carries cholesterol. Does that make sense, Michelle? LDL is a bubble. LDL cholesterol is a bubble that contains cholesterol. So when you say LDL and HDL, you're talking about the bubble. When you say LDL cholesterol, you're talking about the bubble that has cholesterol in it.
Right.
Okay. Well, it turns out that the bubble travels from the liver through the bloodstream. It's actually, what's it doing? It's doing work. The reason it's traveling out of the liver into the bloodstream is to make cell membranes or to make hormones or to repair things. Cholesterol is an incredibly vital substance, so it comes out of the liver to make things, to do things. Keep in mind, most of the cholesterol in our blood is not coming in from food. It's coming in through production, through manufacturing, through cell manufacture. Cells make it, particularly in the liver. So LDL travels out of the liver, and that's why they say it's bad, because it's not being stashed away. It's coming out of the liver to do things. However, it's not just coming out of the liver to do things. It's not just coming out of the liver for no reason. It's coming out of the liver to make stuff. Now, it turns out that if you have wounds in vascular tissue, cuts, nicks, disturbances from poor nutrition, or perhaps from some kind of toxin that's in the blood, sugar in the blood, you'll have little cuts in the blood vessels, and the body will send cholesterol out to patch up the arteries or the blood vessels. When it patches it up over time, eventually you could have plaques form, and this is one of the reasons why we get heart disease, but it's not the fault of the cholesterol. Does that make sense? You follow me? And this is really important to understand, because when you start to take drugs to suppress a biochemical function, you're playing with fire. You cannot just willy-nilly suppress biochemistry. The paradigm, the pharmacological paradigm, the model that says that you can be healthier by poisoning a part of your system is flawed from the get-go. It's inherently problematic. You see what I'm saying? The idea that you can shut down a part of the body, like the cholesterol manufacturing machinery, if you will, and somehow be better off for it, doesn't make sense. And they'll show you studies and they'll say, oh, we did this. We examined 10,000 people and we found that when they took a statin drug, they had a lower risk of 20% lower risk of this and that. But what they're not telling you is what other problems they may have had or what kind of nutritional deficiencies they had so that the body could process the drugs that they were taking. You're burdening an already compromised body. You see what I'm saying? When you interfere with the body pharmacologically, you're putting a load on the body, on a body that is already overloaded. And when you examine this craziness in light of the fact that you have all of these other wonderful alternatives that not only are gentle and non-toxic, but will give you benefits, additional benefits. You know, the drug, you get side effects and adverse reactions. When you start to use nutritional strategies, I'll tell you a few of them here in a second, not only do you take care of your heart disease, not only do you naturally address your cholesterol issue, but you'll add years to your life. You'll have better muscle development. You'll have better cognition. You'll have a better immune system. You'll have healthier skin when you start to use vitamin C for your heart, or lower your blood sugar for your heart, or reduce cortisol for your heart, or make sure you're taking essential fatty acids, or working on digestive health, or any of 100 different strategies that you can use for heart disease. And remember, heart disease is the #1 killer in the world, not just in the United States, in the world. It's the #1, and it's been the #1 killer for 100 years. Yes. So we have a serious health issue, and that's full-blown heart disease. But there's other vascular diseases that don't even count as heart disease. So cardiovascular disease in general probably kills I don't know, around the world, but in the United States, there's millions of people who are dealing with, I don't know how many people die, but there's millions of people dealing with the disease, with cardiovascular diseases. So cholesterol is not a bad guy. HDL and LDL should not be called good and bad cholesterol. Those are ways of infantilizing us, talking down to us, condescending to us, patronizing us by talking to us like we're in kindergarten. This idea, oh, it's good cholesterol. Oh, it's bad cholesterol. Cholesterol is a molecule. It's not good and it's not bad. And HDL is not necessarily all that when it comes to support, when it comes to its levels being associated with a better, healthier heart. And LDL is not necessarily all bad, as we said. So the trick to keeping your heart healthy is the same as keeping everything else healthy. It's the triangle. When you have toxicity that enters into the bloodstream through a leaky gut, immediately the constituency of the blood changes. It becomes thicker. It becomes less fluid. It's harder for the heart to pump it through the vasculature. And on top of that, because it's not moving, the organs, including the heart, don't get oxygen. They don't get nutrients, and toxicity builds up. This is the 3 things that go wrong with the body. With pretty much that's it. It's starvation, suffocation, and toxification. When I say the body, I mean the cells. The cells are the living part of the body. So it really all boils down to the cells. And that's why I say all disease is cell disease. So cardiomyopathy or cardiovascular or heart disease is cardiocyte disease, heart cell disease. These heart cells are very active. Next to the brain, they're burning through nutrients and burning through oxygen faster than any other cells in the body. So they're very dependent on these nutrients. And when you don't have nutrients flowing through the blood appropriately or oxygen flowing through the blood appropriately, it's going to affect the heart. So what do? First thing, you work on the digestive system. All the things we talk about, and we will continue to talk about because it's so important. I-26, nightly essence probiotics, the ultimate enzymes, which do double duty. They help you process your food at the level of the stomach, and taken on an empty stomach, they clean the blood. They fluidize the blood. Also, in our nightly essence probiotics, which I absolutely love, and I've loved them for many years, you'll get an enzyme called nattokinase, which also helps fluidize the blood. Dr. Ariaz's liver cleanse can make sure that your liver and your gallbladder are working appropriately. The liver and the gallbladder play a major role in when it comes to heart health via bile, which is very important for the blood system. Then you move to the second point on the triangle of disease, and nothing exemplifies the relationship between the triangle and all health challenges than the connection between sugar, or we'll say dysglycemia. Remember, that means dys, messed up, glyce, sugar, emia in the blood, dysglycemia, messed up blood sugar. Just like dysbiosis is messed up gut bacteria. Dys means messed up. Glyce means sugar, emia in the blood. So dysglycemia exemplifies the relationship between these triangle of disease, the 3 points in the triangle of disease, and heart disease, in addition to all other health challenges. Heart disease is in many ways a sign of dysglycemia. It's a hallmark feature of what's called metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is all the things that can go wrong when you have dysglycemia. And dysglycemia, by the way, includes hyper a lot. Hyper means a lot. Insulin, hormone insulin, emia. Hyperinsulinemia means too much insulin in the blood. Dysglycemia means dysfunctional sugar in the blood. Dysglycemia, hyperinsulinemia. They're together. So when we talk about dysglycemia and sugar, we got to factor in insulin, because insulin is also a problem. Insulin is a growth hormone. It makes cells divide really, really rapidly. And when cells are dividing really, really rapidly, as the blood is flowing through the blood vessels, the cells in the vasculature and the tubes will divide rapidly. And this is one of the reasons why the blood doesn't flow as effectively. It's one of the reasons why we get high blood pressure and hypertension. And of course, it contributes to the sluggishness or the impedance of the flow of blood and the flow of oxygen, the flow of nutrients. So between blood sugar and insulin, you have the hallmark, or dysglycemia and hyperinsulinemia, the hallmark features of heart disease, which means, if you're worried about heart disease, address your sugar and your insulin. Of course, many ways to do that. And if you have heart disease, consider yourself a diabetic. Whether or not you've been diagnosed, just treat yourself like a diabetic. As far as cholesterol goes, the number one reason why cholesterol levels go up, why the body produces cholesterol, is because of sugar intake. And when I say sugar, I'm not just talking about pies and cakes and candies. I'm talking about fruit juice. I'm talking about potatoes. I'm talking about rice. I'm talking about bread. I'm talking about processed cereals and grains. There's lots of ways to throw off the body's sugar, to throw off the body's blood sugar via foods that have nothing to do with sweets. So you may say, I don't like cake, I don't like candy, but if you're eating bread and you're eating pasta and you're eating potatoes, that's going to throw off your sugar, so your blood sugar. So treat yourself like a diabetic. The number one reason why cholesterol goes up is because of elevated sugar. Why? Well, sugar and insulin induce growth. Sugar makes things happen. Cholesterol makes things happen. Only animals make cholesterol. Plants don't make cholesterol. So cholesterol is a distinguishing molecule that separates the plant world from the animal world. And what is it that animals do that plants don't do? We walk and we move, and we have a musculoskeletal system. We think. We have a nervous system. We have electricity in our body. Well, guess what? This is what cholesterol is all about. Cholesterol plays a role in the electrification of cells. Cholesterol is very important for muscle contraction and for movement. Cholesterol makes us not a fern plant. And if I wanted to destroy a culture's health, I would tell that culture I would give that culture a medicine that poisons their cholesterol system. Cholesterol is that vital. Now, it turns out that the body's going to keep making cholesterol, so you can't totally poison the cholesterol system, but you're going to impair it with a statin drug, and the cholesterol is going up because of your blood sugar. So to me, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And then if you take care of your blood sugar, you're going to lower your risk for all other kinds of health challenges, including accelerated aging, because sugar reacts with tissue to cause the breakdown of that tissue. And that's one of the reasons why we age, is because our tissue deteriorates, and sugar is partially responsible for that. The reaction between sugar and proteins in the body is called glycation. And in fact, if you're a diabetic, you know that you have to go get a glycated hemoglobin test to see how fast your body's glycating, how fast it's sugaring or caramelizing. They call it a hemoglobin A1C test. In any case, if you're worried about heart disease, you got to address the first point of the triangle of disease. I'll tell you how to do that in a sec. I know we've talked about it before. And the second point of the triangle of disease, work on your blood sugar. We've got the healthy blood sugar pack. We've got the ultimate niacin, ultimate selenium. We've got the ultimate microbiome, which is used for the microbiome, which is used for the digestive system, the microbiome, but it's also helpful for slowing down the release of sugar. And by the way, I said this earlier, but let me just reinforce this. Fruit juice is not good for anybody other than a sip or two if you get it fresh, if you make the juice fresh. One of the things about sugar is you don't want it to get into the blood really fast. You don't want to spike the blood sugar. You want it to go into the blood sugar slowly, and that's why fruit is different from fruit juice, because fruit has fiber in it. And with fiber, you get a kind of slowing down of the movement of sugar across the wall of the intestine into the blood. So using more fiber, the ultimate microbiome is a source of fiber, soluble fiber, which helps slow down the release of sugar. I mentioned the ultimate niacin. I mentioned the sweeties. The ultimate selenium is important for insulin. MSM, our ultimate MSM, is also important for the production of insulin. And of course, the best strategy is going to be just not to eat the sugar. By the way, if you have a hard time with weaning yourself off of sugar, and a lot of people do, sugar is very addicting, and it activates happy hormones. So it's tough to say to somebody, don't eat sugar. If you're really dedicated to doing that, use more protein. The more protein you eat, the less likely you're going to want to be to use sugar. The body can turn protein into sugar. And by the way, this can be a good thing and a bad thing. In other words, the body can turn protein into sugar, so you don't necessarily need to eat sugar to get your blood sugar going. Your brain needs sugar, and your heart needs sugar. Sugar is a very important source of energy, so you need some sugar. The body can turn protein into sugar. And that's a good thing because it's a slower release. The protein to sugar biochemical reaction takes a little bit of time. They call it gluco for sugar, glucose, new, genesis, building. Gluconeogenesis is a new way of making sugar, a new way of generating sugar, if you will, from amino acids. And the liver is very good at this. Now, the bad news about that is if you are trying to lower your sugar, but you're doing it by eating a lot of hamburgers or steak, you may find that you're not lowering your sugar as effectively. So you got to be a little bit careful with protein, but protein in general has a anti-sugar, anti-craving effect. It'll help you with your cravings, particularly one amino acid called glutamine, which I absolutely love for a lot of reasons. Glutamine is a really important amino acid for muscle building. It's important for detoxification. And it also has, helps the body, helps us deal with sugar cravings. Glutamine is also important for the intestine. So eating more protein is a great way to wean yourself off of sugar. If you do fall off the wagon and eat a bunch of sugar, and now you feel either you get a sugar high, you want to lower, you're worried about your glycation or about your diabetic symptoms, your heart, or whatever it is, drink water, because water will dilute your blood sugar. The B vitamins are extremely important for blood sugar control because the B vitamins help the body turn sugar into energy, especially vitamin B1. This is one of the reasons why I like this product so much. I don't think you can see it. I don't know
Tangy tangerine.
See it?
Yep.
My Beyond Tangy Tangerine is so loaded with the B complex, with B vitamins. So heart disease and elevated cholesterol go hand in hand with dysglycemia and hyperinsulinemia. Likewise with dysbiosis, as well as bile and liver problems. And then, of course, the third point on the triangle of disease, cortisol, stress hormone. Cortisol is a pro-hypertensive hormone. It will cause blood pressure to go up, and this can put a strain on the vasculature, can put a strain on the heart. So making sure you're stabilizing your cortisol. Now, cortisol is secondary to dysglycemia and dysbiosis and leaky gut and problems with the digestive system. So it's a little more difficult to work with cortisol directly. And when your cortisol goes up, your thyroid has a tendency to go down, and hypothyroidism is also linked to cardiovascular disease and elevated cholesterol. Hypothyroidism kind of slows everything down. So working on cortisol is important. Now, the best way to work on cortisol is to relax. Now, understand that's easier said than done sometimes, but you can take 10 minutes and relax. with relaxation exercises, relaxation strategies, slow, deep breathing, warm water, muscle relaxation, meditation, spirituality. All of these are great strategies for lowering cortisol, and that's very important. But just working the first 2 points in the triangle of disease will also help you lower cortisol. And really lowering cortisol, which is stress hormone, and it's a very important hormone, by the way. It's cortisol that gets us out of bed in the morning. The first thing in the morning, or not even first thing, when the sun comes up, the actual sunlight in your eyes, even when you're asleep with your eyes closed, the sunlight through your eyes will trigger a spike in cortisol. Even when when your eyes are closed, you're still getting some sunlight through your eyelids, and you get a spike in cortisol, and that's why we wake up. And a lot of people will notice they wake up at 5 in the morning, no matter what. Even if they haven't had a lot of sleep and they went to bed at midnight, they'll wake up at 5 in the morning because you get a natural surge of cortisol, which is good. It gets you out of bed. So cortisol is not all bad. It's the hypercortisolemia, emia in the blood, hypercortisolemia, that's the real issue. And lowering cortisol is really part of self-care. And that, Michelle, that's what we're talking about here. It's taking care of yourself. If you go to the doctor and get a statin drug, that's not taking care of yourself. That's dosing yourself. That's drugging yourself. When I say taking care of yourself, I mean loving yourself. This body of ours is our ride, if you will, for 70 or 80 years, hopefully. And it's so forgiving and it's so loving. It repairs itself. It helps us go through the world. It gives us pleasure through all these wonderful nerves and sensations. And it gives us a pleasure through hormones in our brain. It's just such a beautiful thing that we have, and we don't love it. We don't care for
and
it.
Question your doctor. I went for a full cardiovascular check a couple of years ago. I'm 66 now, and it came up perfect. This is like a full 1.5 hour cardiovascular everything. I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and he's going through all of the results. Couldn't find anything wrong with me. And so I get up to leave, and he says, "Oh, I'll write you a script for a statin." And I said, "Why would you do that?" And he said, "Well, you're over 60. You're in the high risk group."
Yeah, you're in the high risk group.
And I said, "I've got a perfect cardiovascular, and you're going to give me a statin. Why would you do that?"
Because they don't see the statins as a problem. To him, it's not a problem. If you go to a doctor and you have, say, something like an arrhythmia, right? What do they do? Arrhythmias, the heartbeat is very, very, it's an amazingly tightly regulated and choreographed biochemical process, the heartbeat. You have little cells in your heart called pacemaker cells. Those pacemaker cells will contract and generate electrical charges, and those electrical charges will spread through the heart. And this is how a heart beats. And this happens every second for, 80 years. How many heartbeats do you have? If you have a heartbeat every second, you can just do the math. How many heartbeats somebody has. I don't know if it's every second, but you have a lot of heartbeats, and this kind of wave of electricity that starts off with a couple of cells in the heart and then just kind of waves through the entire organ is an incredibly complicated process. And so this wave of when this wave of electrical energy that causes the heartbeat becomes disturbed through inflammation, through nutritional deficiencies, through toxicities of streaming into the bloodstream through a leaky gut, through elevated blood sugar or elevated cortisol, for a lot of reasons, the heart will beat in an irregular fashion. They call that an arrhythmia. Arrhythmias are very problematic because if the heart isn't beating powerfully enough, the blood won't move powerfully enough, and clots will form. So arrhythmias can be very, very dangerous. Likewise, ventricular tachycardia or atrial fibrillations, which are also kind of rhythm problems with the heart, either where it's beating too fast or it's beating in a random, disorganized fashion. So you know what doctors do for that? They'll burn your heart with a process called an ablation. They'll literally cauterize it with electricity. How is this okay? How is this ever okay to cauterize your heart? Say, oh, I'm not going to cauterize my heart, but I'll take a beta blocker or a calcium channel blocker. What do those do? They poison the heart. I'm not saying that metaphorically or poetically. I'm saying that literally. They slow the heart down so the heart doesn't have to work as hard. How is this acceptable? How is it acceptable to do these things to somebody's heart? It just blows me away, especially when you have these wonderful alternative strategies. So Longevity's got great products for the heart. We got the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, and the brain and heart go together. The brain is very, very dependent on the heart. The heart's very dependent on the brain. And in a way, the heart is a type of brain. You actually have brain cells in your heart. We actually think with our heart. We actually have cells in the heart, literal neurons in the heart that are associated with, that are part of the brain. They're brain cells. So you actually have a brain in your heart. There's a very important relationship between the brain and the heart, thus the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack from Longevity. But with it, you want to make absolutely sure you're taking care of your blood sugar with all the diabetic strategies, and we can talk about that on another video, but you guys probably all know you eat less sugar, you make sure you do your sweeties and your other sugar metabolizing nutrients, drink more water. Moving your body, by the way, can help shunt sugar out of the blood into the muscle, has a blood sugar lowering effect. And first thing in the morning, actually, the sugar tends to be concentrated in the blood. The blood sugar tends to be higher first thing in the morning. So exercising or moving your body at least first thing in the morning and drinking water first thing in the morning is helpful. And of course, working on digestive health. And of course, no discussion of heart disease would be complete without mentioning my personal favorite vitamin. I call it the Babe Ruth of vitamins, which is vitamin C. And there are many healthcare professionals, including Dr. Matthias Rath, who wrote a really cool book called Why Animals Don't Get Heart Disease, I think it's called. You know, animals don't really get heart disease in the wild anyway. Domesticated animals get heart disease, but wild animals in the wild don't really have heart disease. And so he wrote a book about it, and he said animals don't get heart disease because animals make their own vitamin C. Did you know this, Michelle? Animals make
I did.
Vitamin C,
yes,
right?
Yes, I did.
We're the only animals. A couple of gorillas and the fruit bat and a few other animals. I think a couple type of guinea pig. Most animals make vitamin C, and according to Dr. Matthias Rath, who is almost like the guru of vitamin C, he wrote a book about this whole thing. And vitamin C plays a major, major role in keeping the heart healthy via its connective tissue building properties. The blood is connective tissue. The blood vessels are made up of connective tissue, and the heart sits on a skeleton of connective tissue. The heart has its own connective tissue skeleton. And the very essence of aging is connective tissue deterioration. So when the connective tissue deteriorates, whether it's in your skin or whether it's in your fascia or whether it's in your joints, it can also deteriorate in your heart. And this is another reason why heart disease is such a prominent problem, is because our connective tissue deteriorates with age. So building connective tissue is another important strategy. Collagen building, so things like collagen peptides can be helpful. And then vitamin C, of course, you can't make collagen without vitamin C. So the Healthy Start Pack, the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, all the anti-diabetic nutrients, anti-diabetic strategies, patch up a leaky gut, lower your cortisol, throw in a couple of collagen building supplements such as TMR, whey protein. Love the TMR. Stan, thank you so much for making that TMR. It's an awesome, awesome formulation. I do it every day. Whey protein can help you build collagen. Collagen peptides, of course, can be important. And then vitamin C is the key that turns on the production of collagen. You can't build connective tissue without vitamin C. So vitamin C is also very important, and yet another reason why BTT is so vital. And then we talked earlier about the B complex. The B complex are your energy vitamins, and they're all very important for the heart, but B12, B1, and B3, and B6 for that matter, stand out in importance when it comes to keeping your heart healthy. You'll get all of that in your Beyond Tangy Tangerine, which of course is part of your Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. So you have so many ways, nutritional ways, as well as lifestyle strategies like exercise, like relaxation strategies to help protect yourself from the number one killer without going to a doctor and without taking prescription drugs.
Great. So, Ben, I'll just add in one more for the blood sugar. When I came to longevity, I'd been brought up by a mother who loved baking. So I was brought up with morning tea, afternoon tea, dessert after dinner. So I had a real sugar addiction. And somebody said to me, get onto the minerals because you're craving minerals. So I did that. Within about 2.5, 3 months of being on the liquid minerals, I wasn't looking for those sugary foods anymore.
Good for
And
you.
and
You're probably getting more bang for your buck.
yeah,
Minerals are a very important part of sugar processing too. We talked about how the body processes sugar with the B vitamins, but
yeah,
magnesium is important, zinc is important, chromium and vanadium are very important. We mentioned selenium and sulfur. All of these are very important parts of sugar metabolism. Manganese is another very underappreciated nutrient when it comes to helping the body derive energy from sugar. There's so many different ways that you can
yeah.
address sugar and digestive problems and cardiovascular health. The number one killer without having to deal with the medical model.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a myth about, why cholesterol builds up in the arteries. And I have heard that it's actually almost like a Band-Aid trying to protect you. The primary
Exactly right.
cause
It's like a
being
Band-Aid.
inflammation-causing foods, aggravating the wall of your arteries, and then the splits start appearing. So the body
All of
comes
that.
in and puts a Band-Aid of
All of
cholesterol.
that. All of
Yeah,
that. Absolutely. Now, it's true. Once cholesterol Band-Aid forms, it can fall off and create problems in the blood. And that is an issue. So
yeah,
if you do have cholesterol plaques, that is a problem. But you want to take care of those cholesterol plaques without having to deal with drugs or with surgeries. And there's lots of ways to do it. First of all, if you have cholesterol plaques already, consider chelation therapy. Chelation therapy is when they inject a chemical into your blood that has a magnetic effect that pulls out toxins from the blood, pulls out excess minerals from the blood, it pulls out waste from the blood, it pulls out toxicity from the blood. So chelation therapy can be helpful. Even if you're not sick, chelation therapy can have a longevity enhancing effect. I know a lot of doctors who do chelation, elderly doctors who do chelation for themselves, even though the standard dogma is that chelation therapy is quackery, or it's pseudoscience, as they like to say. But chelation therapy is great. You can also use oral chelation. You can either use an oral chelating agent, or nutritional supplements have chelating properties. Vitamin C has chelating properties. N-acetylcysteine, NAC, has chelating properties. Sulfur and selenium have chelating properties. So these are all great ways to detoxify the blood, to prevent stenosis or narrowing of the arteries, or to prevent the formation of plaques, or help strengthen or help reduce the formation of plaques, in addition to preventing the formation of plaques. So chelation therapy is another good strategy for you to use. It's just really, it's almost endless, the amount of good things that we can do. If you just take every day and say, I'm going to do one more good thing for my body, or even just one good thing for your body, you can go a long way towards enhancing your longevity and reducing the likelihood that you're going to end up in some doctor's office or some hospital because you have a degenerative disease.
yeah. So also, you've talked about the triangle of disease, and I just want to bring people's attention. We've got a full video of Ben explaining the triangle of disease on our Young for Life YouTube channel. So that's Young numeral 4 Life. And just jump onto that, because it's so enlightening about the way disease escalates from inflammation causing foods.
How it progresses from the digestive system, the blood sugar system, to cortisol and the thyroid. Then the thyroid goes back down to the digestive system. You get this circle or triangle that spins around, and most of us end up in this downward spiral. And then, of course, inflammation is involved as tissue breaks down. In fact, maybe we can talk about inflammation on our next video here, because that's such a fascinating subject and misunderstood subject as well. Nonetheless, it's that triangle that you want to focus on. And you know what, Michelle? Health is so complicated that people want to just, wash their hands of their responsibility and just say, you fix me, whatever it takes.
Yep.
But with the triangle, if you understand how this whole thing goes together, you can see how through just simple lifestyle strategies, changing the way you eat, basically, changing the way you drink in terms of hydration, changing the way you supplement, you can go a long way towards preventing long-term degenerative diseases of all kinds, including heart disease. And of course, SMEP is also important: spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And that's another subject I'd love to talk about on another video.
Yeah. So jump onto the Young for Life YouTube channel, because Ben's also done a very in-depth video on digestion, and he talks about how to do an investigation into to find what the foods are that are causing inflammation with your food diary. And he walks you through the whole digestion topic, which is hand in hand with what we've been discussing today. So lots of good information, and Ben's going to keep churning it out.
Churning it out every day. And
So,
join our members only. Join our members only.
Okay. So on that point, if anyone really needs some personal help to get going on this return, to reclaim their health, just at the bottom of the screen, you can see info@pharmacistbenfuchs.com. Drop us an email and let us know, what your issues are. And Ben is available for one-on-one coaching because when you start on this journey, you might really need some hand-holding. And, just drop us a line and we'll get you going back to health. On the other thing on the screen, I've put up a QR code there showing it'll link you through to have a look at the digestion products that Ben always talks about, and makes that easier for you to find. So thanks, Ben. That's been an awesome